Good morning, kids. Good morning, families. It is that time of the week where we look at the new City Catechism together and go through this week's question together. And this week we are at question 28, and I want to just jump right into it with you all. So if you want to grab your book, we are going to jump into it. So our question this week is number 28. And it says, what happens after death to those not united to Christ by faith? So again, what happens after death to those not united to Christ by faith? And I'm just going to read you the short answer for you guys. They will be cast out from the presence of God into hell, justly punished forever. So they'll be cast out from the presence of God into hell to be justly punished forever. And that can be a tough thing for us to think about. That can be tough for us to wrap our heads around, because it just seems so incomprehensible to us. But we have a God that is just, and we have a God that is fair, and He offers Himself to us. As we've talked throughout all of this, He has given us the choice and the option to choose Him and to love Him and to follow Him. I encourage you as a family right now to open up to John 3 and then read John 3, 16 through 18 together, and then also read verse 36. John 3:16 might sound familiar to you all. You probably have heard it before. It says, "For God so loved the world that He gave His only Son, so that those that follow Him may not perish but have eternal life." As we've talked about, Christ came to die so that we can live with Him forever, so that we should not perish. But there is a very real reality to it, that there are people, unfortunately, that exist and live in this world that choose not to give their lives to Christ, that don't know what He's done for them. They don't know who He is. They don't live a life that follows Him. But I want y'all to as we look at that passage, to remember first and foremost that God is loving. That's why He sent Jesus. He gave His Son to death so that we would know Him because of His great love for us. And then God will give His people eternal life when they choose Him. So I want to ask, what does this passage say about those who choose not to believe in Jesus? What does it say about what will happen to those that aren't united to Christ by their faith? Talk about that. I want y'all to look and discuss that as a family. What does that look like? What does it say? Verse 16, it says, those that are united to Christ will not perish. But then later in verse 18, it says those who perish will be condemned. And condemned because of their sin and their rebellion against God. They chose not to live a life following Him. And so often we want to think about what hell might look like. You probably have an image in your head right now of what it might look like. We think of the flames, and we might think of like a cave and all of those things. But really, the most important reality about that we need to know is that it just means eternity separated from God. It means not being in His presence ever. And that can seem really scary, and that can seem really hard to live a life condemned and punished and separated from Him. That's why it's so important for us to choose Him and to follow Him and give our lives to Him and to love Him. See, in eternity, people that lived a life that followed Christ, that they put their faith in Him, they get to spend all of eternity with Him. And those who spent their time here on earth rebelling against God will be apart from him. Our God is just. That is a big part of who he is, and he can't let us get away with our rebellion. Much like maybe your parents can't let you get away with the things that you do at home that go against what they ask of you. So again, the main thing that characterizes hell isn't flames or a cave or whatever. It's that you don't get to be with God. That he will be apart from you. And this is why it's so important, because like we said, there are so many people in this world that don't know Jesus. That don't really know who he is and what he did for them. And they choose not to follow him. And so that's why for us it's so important that we share the gospel. We share the good news of who Jesus is and what he did. To love people around us means we need for them to know who Jesus is, so that they too can put their faith in him, that they can be united to Jesus Christ by their faith, and so that they don't have to spend eternity separated from him. That's why we do it. That's we want the world to obtain salvation. God doesn't want us to perish. God doesn't want any person on this planet to perish and be condemned. That's not his hope. That's not his desire for anyone. And so that's why you and me need to be people that go out and live a life that shows others what it looks like to talk about Jesus, to love people so well that they come to put their faith in him. That's the purpose of a Christian life. It's one of the most important things we can do, and it's what Christ called us to before he ascended into heaven. So I encourage you to talk about this as a family, because I know it can feel kind of scary or it's kind of heavy to talk about, but it's important. So what are some things that you can do to help shine the light of Christ on those around you that may not know who he is? Maybe as a family, take some time to talk about people that y'all know specifically that don't know Jesus, that have chosen not to put their faith in him. And then what can y'all do to help show them who he truly is? Take some time this week to go through that and talk through that as a family. Thank you guys so much. We love you. We miss you. Have a great week. Bye.